When I was growing up, it seemed that everybody smoked. Parents smoked, teachers smoked, grandparents smoked, actors smoked, doctors smoked. It was completely normal. Smoking was so normalized that we even created a kind of belief system around it with the help of a lot of marketing. We believed that smoking made you tough. We had no idea that when you were smoking as a teenager, you were quite possibly setting yourself up for serious compromised health in midlife. How could we know? You couldn't see any symptoms. You didn't look ill. There was nothing wrong with you. So we had no idea. And then science took a big step forward. Innovative technology combined with medical research taught us that our belief system around smoking was utterly false. We learned from non-invasive looking into our lungs that smoking did not make us tough. If anything, it was going to make us sick and weak. X-ray technology gave us the opportunity to see the blackening of our lungs, the growing of tumors, the emergence of cancer. And then it was discovered that it wasn't the person inhaling the smoke that was the most at risk. It was discovered that in actual fact, it was the people breathing in the secondhand smoke that were in the most danger. That's when the laws changed. All of a sudden, it seemed like overnight, you weren't allowed to smoke anywhere. You couldn't smoke in the workplace, you couldn't smoke in school, you couldn't smoke on an airplane or in a bar or a restaurant. Children were not allowed to buy cigarettes, and the packaging on cigarettes even had to show you those x-rays of cancerous lungs, just to be sure that you knew that when you were smoking, you were putting yourself in danger. We are at a similar point right now in society. We are on what Malcolm Gladwell calls a tipping point. We are what science historian Thomas Kuhn calls a scientific revolution. And it's the same two components. It's technological innovation and it's medical research. So let's look at the medical research first. At the end of the 20th century, two American doctors, Dr. Vincent Felitti and Dr. Robert Anda, conducted a massive research project. It's referred to as the ACE study. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And they surveyed close to about 20,000 patients. And what they were trying to figure out is there some correlation between adversity or suffering in childhood and midlife health outcomes that are highly negative, like cancer? They found out in their work that in actual fact, there is a direct correlation. The more suffering, the more adversity a child has in their growing up years, the more they will have cancer, coronary disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and so on. When Robert Anda presented this material, what they had found out to the medical community, he wept. Dr. Vincent Felitti calls this reverse alchemy. He says our children are born with golden health potential, but what we adults do to them over the course of their lives turns their health outcomes into lead. They had 10 questions on the survey. 5 of the questions were along the lines of, when you were growing up, did you have a parent or family member who was incarcerated or who had a substance abuse problem? Did you witness domestic abuse? 5 questions. 5 of the questions were on child abuse. Did you suffer physical abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, or emotional abuse in childhood? The emotional abuse question was, when you were growing up, were you frequently sworn at, insulted, put down, humiliated? This was the question I was looking for. I had a very personal engagement in finding out the research on that particular issue. And the reason was, 7 years ago, I was working in a private school. And I'm a teacher, I love teaching, and there were about upwards of 30 parents, and they had been ringing the alarm bells for around a year with the headmaster, saying that they were profoundly concerned about 4 teachers and their conduct. And the issue that they were describing was exactly this: swearing, put-downs, humiliation, insults. They wanted to see the students protected. They wanted the teachers to be off campus, on salary, getting better, and then when they were better to come back to the school community, but they did not want them to have any kind of power or trust or authority position over any student. The headmaster felt like he couldn't act when he was only hearing from parents. He felt that he needed to hear directly from students in order to make a decision. So he asked me as a teacher to take student testimonies. He also asked a lawyer to take testimonies. I ended up taking testimonies from 8 different students. I independently sat and heard the experiences of 4 boys and 4 girls. They all reported the same thing. All the way from second year of university down to grade 10, they all reported the same insults, humiliation, swearing, being put down. And the boys described one target in particular. They said that this boy would be called up to the front, and the teacher would point to the floor in front of them, and it meant this boy had to come forward. The other students had to stop and they had to watch. There was an older teacher, and he would watch as well. And the younger teacher would start yelling in this kid's face. And it was all around basically rhetorical questions about his value, his worth. Do you even deserve to be here? Do you even like to be here? One of the boys described it as vicious. Another boy said, we wanted to stop it, but we couldn't because it was a teacher. Ultimately, the kid would get so overwhelmed and couldn't hack it anymore, and he would take a step back from the teacher, and the teacher would reach forward and grab him, hold him in for more. I'm writing these testimonies down and recording their experiences. And I finally looked up and asked one of the boys, I said, who was it? Who was the target? And the boy said, Monty. Monty is my son. So when the headmaster said to me, this is just old school coaching, I was not convinced. I am a teacher, but I am also a published academic author who believes in research. And so I did not want to hear any normalizing of this conduct. I wanted to know what the research said. I believe in rigorous research, consensus building research, and the kind of research that is peer-reviewed. So I went and looked at it. I read the psychology and I read the psychiatry, and I learned that they've known for easily 50 years that this type of treatment of children does long-lasting, extremely serious damage. They say it's quite possibly worse than sexual and physical abuse. And then I came across an article by Emily Anthony in the Boston Globe. It was written in 2010, and the title of the article is Inside the Bullied Brain, the Alarming Neuroscience of Taunting. The keyword here is inside. This is the part where the technological innovation comes in. We now can see inside the brain non-invasively, just like we could back in the day see inside and look at our lungs non-invasively with X-ray. MRI, fMRI, EEG, we can see on brain scans exactly what is happening to a brain of a child that's been harassed or bullied or abused. This is what they see. They see abnormalities on the brain, withering, shrinkages, neurological scars, and deficits. Try and imagine a brain like that at school, playing a sport, trying to perform in the arts. They can't concentrate. They have anxiety. They suffer depression. Those brains can't remember. They can't problem solve, and they don't make good decisions. Why? Because they are harmed. It is time for change. We need to take a big step forward from the bullying and abuse paradigm that has no research to back it up. I could not find a single article, nothing, zero. There is no reputable scientist that will put their name to any research that suggests that bullying and abuse does anything for us. Doesn't make us tough, doesn't make us resilient, doesn't make us perform. It doesn't motivate, it does nothing except damage the brain. So it is time that we move from that paradigm to the new neuro paradigm, where we learn about our brains, what makes them flourish and what makes them suffer. I resigned from that school in protest. I was not going to work at a place where the headmaster was sweeping this type of conduct under the carpet. And I realized in that moment that he was not going to fulfill his legal duty to alert the authorities that he had heard from students that they were being treated this way. When your superior in a school setting does not do their legal duty to report, as a teacher, it falls on your shoulders. I fulfilled my legal duty to report to the Commissioner for Teacher Regulation on those 4 teachers, and I resigned in protest. I went and worked at another private school. It took 2 years for the Commissioner for Teacher Regulation to come to a decision. And he ruled on all 4 teachers that they were not going to be held accountable publicly in any way, shape, or form, because in actual fact, it was the fault of the students. He said that the students were too sensitive and that they should not have listened to the teachers' obscenities. Now, that would be like a doctor saying, hey, we have a classroom with 2 teachers in it smoking frequently, and we have a group of students that have had to breathe in the secondhand smoke, and they're starting to show signs of it not being good for them. They are struggling. It doesn't make them feel well, and their parents are worried sick because they know the research on cancer. And the doctor rules, well, it's the fault of the students because their lungs are too sensitive. And you know what? It's the fault of the students because they should have held their breath. They shouldn't be breathing in the secondhand smoke from teachers, just like they shouldn't be listening to the teachers' obscenities that are yelled or muttered at them. That kind of a ruling from the highest authority, the highest legal authority on what's happening to children who are being emotionally abused is absolutely not grounded in any research. I am working at the new private school, and in my 3rd year, this is October the 1st, 2015, a student comes up to me. And I wish you could meet this girl. She is absolutely brilliant. She's just an amazing scientific brain. Like this is high-level international baccalaureate school. And when the physics teacher gets stuck, he defers to her and she goes up to the board and explains to the students what's really going on. And she's funny, and she's adored by her friends, and she's very close to her brother who's at university. And she calls me Ms. Fraser because normally my hair is a mess. It's curly and chaotic. So she comes up to me and I can tell there's something wrong just in the way she's talking. And she said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. She said, I'm being sexually harassed by a teacher. So I do the same thing I did at the other school. I report to the administration. The administration says to me, we need you to take the testimony, just like we did at the other school. So I took this girl's testimony. The teacher was instantly suspended, and a police investigation began. The school community was informed that he was on sick leave. Months later, they were told he was on stress leave. Finally, they were told he's taking early retirement. He never stepped foot on campus again. And the girl, she went on to score the highest out of every kid in that school on her international baccalaureate exams. But she wasn't okay. She looked good, she looked well, she was still being funny, she was still laughing with her friends and being a brilliant scientist. She went on to university, she joined the synchronized swim team. She looked fine, but nobody was looking in her brain. And this is what she described as what it felt like to be in her brain. She wrote, one teacher at my school sexually harassed me. He betrayed my trust. Since then, everything went out of control. I made several attempts on my life. Just like people with cancer, we who suffer severe depression are also at risk for dying. Just like cancer, we can't control the disease. Just like cancer, we can't wave a magic wand and smile and it would go away. Just like cancer, deep down inside, we want to live, but we can't control the disease. On November the 21st, in her second year of university, 2017, she took her own life. We have so normalized bullying and abuse in our culture that we have come up with a word for this. We call this bullycide. When you kill yourself, you commit suicide. When you kill the father, you commit patricide. When you commit bullycide, you kill the bully, that you think the bully is in your brain, and so that you must sacrifice yourself to get it out. We have so normalized bullying and abuse in our society that the #1 leading cause of death in youth populations in Australia is suicide. In North America, it's #2. What about other countries? It is time for change. My students, and I think the vast majority of students, have no idea that they can change their brains. They are not sentenced to a terminal cancer sentence when they are bullied or harassed or abused. They have the capacity and power, and this is well documented in the neuroscience, to take those harmful, hurtful, painful neural networks and transform them into healthy ones. But my student did not get sent to a rehab. Nobody was looking at her brain, and nobody was working to ensure that it got rewired after they knew what she'd been put through. Up until the age of 24 or 25, our young people have the most malleable brains. They have mind-blowing neuroplasticity. They can change, they can get better, they can be healed, but it's up to us to do it. We must march. Parents, teachers, coaches, we must march with our children for change. It's time to enter into the new neural network. So this is an ideal we're sharing, and this is also a call to action.